we're in the same strata, so to speak.
Yeah, we're in the Central Time Zone.
There you go. That's a good way of putting it. Great to meet you, man. I'm looking forward to delving into your life. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Thanks for
So,
having me on.
yeah, yes, sir. So before we get into your work, I want
Mhm.
to know first and foremost, 4 years ago, this pandemic rocked a lot of what we were doing in good
Yeah,
and bad ways. We didn't
yeah.
know when we were going to get out of it, but ultimately now in 2024, when you look back, how did you survive that time period and how did it change the way that you do things now?
A lot of it, I mean, yeah, definitely a lot of things closed up. People were a little nervous about how to meet. Well, the great thing is, as I was going through that whole time period, I was always into video conferencing and working with people that way anyway. So it was still worked. It was, still trying to get a hold of people and working with them. But the reality is, most of my interactions sometimes with clients, especially if they don't need me to travel somewhere, because I travel all over the place from Chicago, New York, California, wherever, and a lot of the work is sent electronically to me, and then I have calls like this where we talk and we walk through their what they need to have done or how to take care of things. So for me, actually, work probably increased because people are more interested in working with people outside of their area. Sometimes people are like, oh, someone needs to be close. I need this fractional CFO, COO right here. They need to be in my office the whole time. And then all of a sudden it started warming up to the ideas like we can get talent all over the country and they don't have to be here in my backyard basically. So
It seems like technology did open up so many things. It was a godsend, especially for
yeah,
what you're doing. You don't have to
yeah,
travel as much. No one has any trepidation. Because I think before the pandemic, there was always this thing where, oh, well, you can't work at home. You have to
right,
be physically there.
right.
Like that whole thing just absolutely disappeared.
Yeah, it did, and you can still see out there as people are looking for work and things like that. They're like, it was not necessarily you have to be in that geographic area, and I think there's some positives of it is that you can actually get different talent that you wouldn't have been exposed to because now they're more open to you don't have to be in a cubicle or a space like that, and I've still seen where people still not really going back to their office on a regular basis. It's like once a month,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
some empty buildings out there.
For sure there is. So let's get to the heart and soul of what you do on a
Yeah,
daily basis. It's very clear on paper, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of grade school kids. It's career
yeah,
day.
yeah.
Third grader looks up at you and says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer them?
How I best answer that is I help people fix their problems, or I help them solve the riddle of the day. So what that looks like is a CEO comes to me and says, I need to be able to take our company to this where it is now to a different level, or we're struggling in finances or operations. So how can you help? And that's where I come in and say, based off my experience and what I've done over the years, here's how I'm going to help you, engage in customers or help engage with your employees. And here's how you're going to, see that difference in scaling your company to where you're grow the company bigger and able to make a profit at the same time.
So let's take you back to the third grade. What did you want to be when you were in that chair?
I've always wanted to be. I've been very fortunate over the years when I was a kid to be involved or see other people have their own business, and I've always loved working with people in small businesses and medium-sized businesses, and I've just had that great opportunity to see that through either family or friends or just people just always took an interest anywhere from construction, just going to a construction site, a housing thing, and somebody's working on it and they're like, hey, do you want to do this? And as a kid, you're like, oh, sure. And they're like, and they paid me this, $1 or something to do something. It was just clearing stuff off an area. And then just the person was so kind just because I was like, I wanted to do something because it was just like, oh, I get to help somebody. I get to see something be created. So that's where would be.
So take me back to where you were born and raised, and what were the initial seeds that made you fascinated with business and with helping and getting your hands dirty? How did all that become you now?
A lot of it just through life and just family. I had a family that owned a restaurant and bar when I was growing up, so I could see family working hard doing that. And that's a restaurant business. I can't imagine now today what that would be like. I've seen people, it's been pretty stressful. I had a grandmother who was in, she did taxes for farmers and for other people, individuals, and I got to see her work. And she worked tons of hours. She worked up through her in her mid 80s, and so hard work, exciting to see everyone just help people and do things and solve things. And that's where I just kind of got that excitement to say, where do I fit in with all that, with every, in where my story would be. So that's kind of how I, grew into it.
So who's been a hero for you? Who's been an inspiration for you in your work?
That is always, everyone always asks that. Well, who's been your hero? It's like I don't really have a particular one person. It's just my hero is just watching people create and develop something and to see where it goes, not for them just individually, but as a whole, how it affects a community. And I think that's exciting to me, to saying those are the heroes, seeing somebody take something from nothing and create something, and then create jobs, create just an opportunity. And I think that's where that's my hero, is watching people like that.
So in the realm of business, more specifically, we kind of treat it like sport. There's
Yeah.
this rise to prominence like a Jeff Bezos or a Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
If you could be around one of those leaders that's alive today
Right.
and spend some time with them, who would that be? What business would you love to just see how it works?
Yeah, they're all those companies that we always think about, Apple and Amazon and Facebook, at one time Meta. You look at those and see how did they get there, and I think it's always looking at that is how did they rise that? What were the decisions that made them get to where they are at? So there's always, I think all of them would be very interesting to do. Even Steve Jobs, who is no longer with us anymore, it would be interesting to see where their rise from the '80s to where they disappeared kind of and got quiet, and how they refocused, and then where they were at. And they all have unique ways they did it. Some were good, some were okay, but I think you always learn something, and that's something I've always learned for myself and taught other people. It's like we can always learn from each other, if it's the good way or the bad way to do it, but we at least learn and figure out how do we solve what we're trying to accomplish.
Speaking of that, what is it for you every day that gets you up, that gets you motivated to do the work that you do to help your clients, but also keeping enough back to evolve as a human being yourself? What's that collective combustion for you?
I just every day just being involved in for my own community, and also that larger than the community is just how I can be. I get excited just like what can I do today? What is it I can do to help somebody today in their business, in their life? Because the business grows, but also it helps other people in their life. And I think that's what excites me, is knowing that it's like, can I make a difference, or can I even help somebody, lead them and say, hey, here's something. I can't solve the whole thing for you, but here's a piece. And I can't wait to see what you make of it, because I want to see someone excel well beyond what I can even help them with.
So, has there been a particular client that you worked with that was rather difficult, but it was so sweet at the end? Something that really made you grow, that was really just something that stands out?
A lot of them, all my clients, that yeah, they always have their unique things that they have. And always I think you would say difficult is like when you first meet them and everyone's nice and we're all like, hey, this is great, and you get into it and you see what's behind the curtain. Basically, you're like, oh, so you get there because you think this is what you're getting yourself into, and this is how the culture is, and you get there and you realize that it's not quite what it was presented. And a lot of it is this. I love challenges, so I just anything like that. I love the challenge. So even if it's difficult or not what I was expecting, I then even push in even more into it and try to prove that it can be changed or it can work out for everybody. So that's what excites me, and what's I love. I love challenges.
So you have to help these business leaders get to a better place, but
Yeah.
ultimately for you, what's the best advice you've ever gotten?
The best advice. I mean, always the thing is never be afraid to fail. I mean, you hear that a lot through all the different, out there podcasts, and other people have talked, famous people have said, you always have to, fail to learn from those failures. And I look at it as the best advice is don't be afraid, take risk, take the opportunity to see what will happen. And if it works, it's great. And I think over time it builds character, and also it does help you look at things differently. And there are successes, and we will have successes and we'll have our failures, but it's like continue to focus on the successes and learn from the failures.
It seems like in this modern world, we're embracing coaching and the idea of a fractional COO, CFO. When did all of that start really gaining ground and becoming more of a part of the business culture?
A lot of it, I definitely think because of COVID, a lot of the fractional idea is like fraction of the time you can spend at multiple companies and you can get a very good experiential person that can come in there and walk through the finances or operations. It's still continued to be a little bit new when I talk to people like, oh, so what is that exactly? What do you do? How do you work? And I think people are embracing this idea because there's some companies that can't afford a full-time CFO, COO. So then they're like, hey, you can do a fraction of the time. It's contract based. That's where they feel like they can do that. And other ones, I've worked with companies that have been 20 plus years old or older, and they have a large employees and they still don't have a CFO or they don't have a CEO. And it's like, it's always interesting how did they function for that many years? They have, but then you get in there and you're like, okay, here's how I can help because they've never had that formal person to help guide or help, advise the CEO or even the board if they have a board.
So, of all of these things that you've done and evolved into at this point in your life, what are you the proudest of?
What am I proud of? One of the companies that I started back in 2007. It was a company I co-owned with another person, and created it, started it with them, built it up to a certain point, and then after a certain point, I moved on. And to see the company grow as it has now, it's been around since 2007, and it started off with a small group of people. We, were, low, about $5-6 million in revenue, and now it is a $50+ million company, and it's nationwide, international. So it's exciting to see something like that grow, knowing that I was part of that, and that some of the things I put in place is now the success, or was part of the success that it is today.
So, you've probably seen a lot of change throughout your life in the world of business, but I'm going to ask you
Yeah.
this. If you have a dream tonight and ran into the 18-year-old version of you, you can give that young
Hmm.
version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've led, the wisdom you've gained along the way. What
Yeah.
advice would you impart, and would that version of you listen?
Yeah, with that person, I always think that when you always say, "What would that person do?" I was like, I don't know if I would. I'd hope I would listen, because she's like, 18, I'll figure it out. No, thanks for the advice, but I'm going to keep on doing what I'm doing. Is always the trick. Sometimes I would say for that person to not be as hard on necessarily the outcomes. Sometimes over the years of just been, my outcomes, my expectations of myself are so high that not letting myself to relax a little bit on those expectations and enjoy it more. Enjoy the moments. I think that is the biggest thing I would say. Takeaway is enjoy the moments, the wins, even the losses. Enjoy those moments as time goes on because you only have so much time, and as you get older, of course, you realize how much little time you do have. I have another lifetime I want to live to do more things, but yeah, it's pretty much, I think, enjoy the moment.
So, at the end of the day, everyone out there has a perception of you: family, friends, clients, colleagues, but you run the show. What's
Yeah.
your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Who do I think? Oh, that is a good question. Who do I think? I think just a business owner, entrepreneur, person who cares, wants to see people grow. Yeah, I think that's kind of what I see myself, I guess.
So, Michael, if anyone wants to hire you, reach out, learn more about what you're doing, any of the good business, where do they go?
Where do they go? Well, LinkedIn is always the place to be for me, for my business. So you just go out there to my look up Michael Straza or Straza Consulting. Go out there, request to talk to me. You can go to my website, which is consultstraza.com. I'm out there. You can always send me a note. Look me up on Google to find me. But yeah, I am always available, constantly, always looking to work with people and looking for new exciting things to do.
Right on, Michael. This has been great, man. So much
Yeah.
good. I appreciate it. Best of
Yeah.
luck with everything.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Take care.